Coming up on today's show.
I'm going to have a baby, and my due date is next week.
You're a planner, right? So you definitely have it scheduled for next week, right?
And, you know, as an organizer, I like planning. I enjoy doing that. So, and I started making lists. That was the first thing that I did.
Getting organized during a transition. Today on Keeping You Organized. Hello and welcome to Keeping You Organized. On today's show, we're going to talk about the subject that a lot of people don't like to talk about, which is transition, that sometimes has a negative connotation. Sometimes it has a positive connotation, especially when you're talking about maybe having a baby for the first time. But what do you do to get your house ready and things like that? But, you know, transitions can also involve moving and all kinds of other things. But let's kind of park on this baby idea right now, and we're going to bring in Veronica Bishop from Organizers Northwest. Veronica, welcome to Keeping You Organized.
Hi, John.
Now, I led all this big excitement up about a baby. Do you happen to know anyone who's going to have a baby?
I do. In fact, I'm going to have a baby, and my due date is next week.
Whoa. Good thing we were getting this podcast done now, because this is probably one of the last things you're going to do. And who knows, maybe by the time this interview is done, you'll be having the baby and we'll have to cut it short. But hopefully not. Hopefully it's all going to be planned, because you're a planner, right? So you definitely have it scheduled for next week, right?
Oh, well, I'm hoping as long as it's not early, I'll be good. I've got things kind of down to the day. So yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, good. Well, you know, our topic today is organizing, getting organized for a transition. Obviously, when you get the news of the baby, that's exciting. You tell all your friends and families, members, and then it's like, oh, we got to get kind of ready for this. Take us back to when you first started thinking about this transition and what you had to do.
Well, it took a few weeks to kind of kick in that it was happening, and then it was suddenly like, oh, I've got all this stuff to do. And, you know, as an organizer, I like planning. I enjoy doing that. So, and I started making lists. That was the first thing that I did. And obviously planning the baby shower was a big part. This is my first baby, so I didn't have any stuff, baby stuff. And, you know, that the stuff is a big thing. People talk to you about, you need this and you need that. And so I spent a lot of time really asking people and getting feedback from people who already had children. What do I really need? Because I didn't want lots of extra stuff in my house. So I kind of just started collecting it slowly over time and crossing things off. And I've still got a list of, you know, last minute things that I'm doing, but keeping track of everything I needed to do has really helped me.
Now, thinking about, you know, having not had a baby before, so you're not an expert in what you need to do, so you did the good thing about asking advice, but you're also a professional organizer. So did you kind of switch between mode of professional organizer and new mom, and kind of describe that dynamic? Or sometimes I've heard people get kind of stymied, even though they know the answer, they can't really figure it out because they're in the middle of the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think as an organizer, when I got, not emotional, but when I got caught up in the moment, or I didn't know how to handle or how to move forward, I kind of tried to put that hat on and think outside the box, I guess. So, it's not easy when you're in the middle of a transition, any kind of transition. You know, it's easy to get overwhelmed. And luckily with the baby, you know it's happening, so you have lots of forward notice, which I did, and that's really helped me. But sometimes, you know, people don't have that when there's a big something. Sometimes something happens and you have to just jump in. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, how about so how about, you know, the concept of, you know, you had the list and stuff. Well, what are some of the specific things that you really felt were kind of like the must-do, high priority things to get done before you had the baby?
Well, planning the baby shower is a big thing. So that was a major kind of event, and sending out thank yous and all of that afterward. And one of the big things was getting the baby's room set up. And luckily we have space for that. But it meant using my office space. So I had to sacrifice my beautiful office, which I loved, for the baby's room. It's now all ready to go. But that was probably the biggest transition in our home, was losing my office and creating that space, and also, going through room by room and purging things that we don't really need in order to make room for baby stuff.
Now, when you talk about losing your office, now, did you create another space, and how are you creative in maybe taking another space or are you just going to be working in another office?
Well, my dining room table is now my workspace, since I like to have a really big, large space to spread out. So that's kind of where that's happening, and I have a little rolling cart down there that I use with my office supplies, small office supplies. But then I also set up an office space upstairs in a closet. And it took me a while to get to that realization that was possible. I realized I needed a place for the printer and my computer when I wasn't using it, and my little files and all of that. So this closet, it's not a walk-in closet. It's just the door rolls open. And I managed to create a really cozy little nook in there using recycled materials from my house. I didn't end up buying anything. So that's my new office.
Well, that's awesome. And I believe you have a blog post, which we can link in our show notes, that kind of shows that process and actually has some pictures. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my goal was not to spend any money. So I kind of looked around the house and found the bits and pieces, and made it work. And it was really fun. And so I think the takeaway from that is, you don't have to do a big remodel or, knock out a wall, or, the only thing we did was cut the clothing hanger in half, the rod. Mm-hmm. But that's it.
Now, how about the concept of, okay, now you're going to have a baby. You've got kind of like this change in your life. You're going to have to work about, your schedule probably is going to change, obviously. Did you start thinking about some of those time management productivity tips that you give to your clients, and then thinking about how you're going to apply them to your own life?
Yeah, well, I think, as I've gone through this process, and certainly I think it'll be true later, writing things down is really the key for me, because personally, the way my brain works is that if I don't write it down, it just sort of flits out. So I have to record kind of what I need to do. So I have always a master to-do list, and I'm always crossing things off. And what I do personally is I write my list at the end of the day again for the next day. And anything that I haven't achieved on the list, I write it again. And what that does for me is that it forces me to rewrite the same thing over and over again if I haven't done it. And then I have to take a bit of a closer look and say, okay, why am I not doing this thing? Often it's that it's not been broken down into a small or achievable task. It's too big. Or it's something that I'm scared to do or I need help with. So writing things down has, and I think will continue to be really helpful for me, especially, when you've got mama fatigued brain after baby. It's, I've been told that it's going to be challenging. And so I'm counting on continuing that habit, that I'm, counting on that helping me to kind of get through that period.
Now, for someone who's going to have a baby in about a week, you're pretty cool. And, a lot of times there's turmoil in a transition. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, let's talk a little bit about how you keep your cool during a transition and, what it takes mentally to get through that transition. And we'll talk about other transitions as well. So we're with Veronica Bishop from Organizers Northwest on Keeping You Organized, and we'll be right back. Nearly 1 in every 8 women in the U.S. will be diagnosed with breast cancer during their lifetime. While researchers work tirelessly to find new ways to fight this disease, a cure has not been found. Show your support for the fight against breast cancer with breast cancer awareness organizing products from Smead. A portion of the proceeds from the sales of specially marked pink products will be donated to support breast cancer research. Breast cancer awareness products include pink SuperTab file folders, stadium files, tag-along mini organizers, and pink expanding wallets. Use the breast cancer awareness products from Smead to get organized and support breast cancer research at the same time. Smead, keeping you organized. We're back now on Keeping You Organized, talking about getting organized during a transition, and we're joined by Veronica Bishop from Organizers Northwest. Veronica's having a baby in about a week, and as you can see, she's not stressed out at all. Either that or she looks really good on TV, but and for those of you listening, she's not stressed out, I believe me. But let's talk about that, because oftentimes just the whole stress of a transition can get on your nerves. So how does somebody stay cool during a transition?
Well, as I mentioned previously, definitely writing things down. One thing we recommend for our clients is creating some kind of a hub, we call it, or a binder where you can keep everything in one place. And again, I mean, it's like the physical manifestation of, having too many thoughts in your head and not writing them down. Having bits of paper all over the house and not collecting them in one place can make it really hard to find things. So we recommend, for example, if you're moving, having a moving binder. We like the kind with the pockets that have the slash cut.
Yeah, they're called the slash jackets. Yep.
Slash jackets. So you can, just pop things in. You're not having to hole punch stuff, but that you have broad categories: receipts, brochures, contacts, so that all that information can kind of land in one place instead of sitting on your counter or wherever. And then having it with you and really keeping track of everything in one place can be really helpful. Usually during times of transition, there's a lot of paper that gets generated.
So now your company, Organizers Northwest, you have a team of organizers there. Tell us about maybe a client you've worked with recently who moved, and I'm sure you use this binder system, but what are some of the other things with that client and how it worked to be a smooth transition?
Oh, well, we're working with one client right now who has an interesting situation in that she's moving with her son who has special needs, and they'll be so she's transitioning this move, but he will also be transitioning, and so it's going to be really challenging for him to have everything change. And so we're working really hard to kind of replicate the house in the new location, and also to just have it be easy for him. So what we're doing is going through room by room and doing the purging part of organizing, kind of getting rid of things that aren't adding value to the household, that aren't special anymore and that they're not using. And then they're going to go ahead and do the move. But they're also doing renovations in the new home. So the binder is really helpful for keeping everything organized in the current home as they're, moving through room by room. We have a checklist going of kind of questions and things to address. But then there's also the renovations that are happening in the new place have a location in that binder. So between the two homes, there's a lot of information to keep straight. And the checklist and the binder really are helping.
So can you think of some other situations, transitions that you guys have worked on, and some of the other strategies for dealing with them, or do they all kind of can follow this? I mean, are there other tools or tips that you can use when dealing with a transition?
Well, the biggest tip that I can think of in my experience is not waiting until the last minute to kind of start to deal with some of these things. And a lot of the time people, they don't start organizing until they're ready to pack. And then what happens is that they don't have enough time. So they end up putting everything in boxes and moving it. And the same is true for travel. It's like if you wait until the last minute to travel, you're not really sure what you need. You haven't done the research for where you're going necessarily. So you end up overpacking. I'm trying to think of
that's an interesting story, because when we moved my mom and dad the first time from their home to a townhome, I remember we started about 7 or 8 months early, and I just said, okay, every Monday night I'm going to come over and we're going to get a little bit done, because you don't want them. And we got rid of a ton of stuff, but even with getting rid of a ton of stuff, they still move boxes over there. And then what happens? They sit in the basement and never get opened. So.
Right. Yeah. So kind of front loading it, I would say, trying to do as much on the front end as possible, which is what we've done with this baby. Is really helpful when you are in that stressful period of however long, it takes to do the move, or I know we'll have that when the baby's first born. It just takes the pressure off. But yeah, even then, so imagine what it would have been like for your family if you hadn't done that 7 months in advance. It would have just been, impossible.
Okay. I got a couple questions for you here. The first one is, do you have that little bag packed for the hospital already?
Yes, we have the bag packed.
Good. And how about the notebook? Is the notebook in the bag, or you just leave that at home?
Oh, the hub.
Yeah.
The hub is at home, and the hub is for baby. The one I made was a place to keep all the baby, sort of first year stuff, immunizations and checklists, and all the little stuff you get from the hospital. Kind of keep it all in one place. So. Yeah, I'll leave that at home. I don't think I think my brain will be elsewhere.
Yeah, you'll be focusing on other things. Well, we're almost out of time. I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about Organizers Northwest. You have a whole team of there. Obviously, you're going to probably be on maternity leave for a little bit, and then but you have a full service team there. Tell us about the services there, who you work with, and how people can get a hold of you.
Sure. Well, we've been around for 10 plus years. We're located in Portland, Oregon. And Missy Gerber's the owner of the company. And so we've got a whole team of organizers. And the number to call if you want to get a hold of Missy in the office is 503-245-3564. And we're at organizersnorthwest.com.
Now, do you guys still have the? Do you still have the boat that you have your office? I know.
Well, the boathouse is currently on the market. So if you know anyone who would like a boathouse, it is available.
Yeah, and it had good internet, because if you go back into our podcast archives, and we did an interview with Missy in season 1. And she did it from the boat, so it's really kind of a neat thing. Just a side story there.
Internet is the most important thing, really, in life, right? So,
I think internet's pretty darn important. So, it's organizersnorthwest.com.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, it's you'll have to let us know via social media or whatever when this baby comes, and we wish you the best for that. And then maybe in several months from now we can do a show on getting organized after you have a baby, because you'll have all that experience as well.
That's right. I will. I'll probably tell you to everything go out the window and forget it.
That's great. So it's Veronica Bishop with OrganizerSNorthwest.com. Now you're able to handle just about any transition, whether it's a baby or moving. And we'll see you next time on Keeping You Organized.